How is it rocking, Dwayne Nation? Stay here because we are just about to get underway. In the meantime, please like, comment, and subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. We put out weekly sports content, and we want to continue to build up Dwayne Nation and the brand that is Dwayne Sports. Thank you all, and enjoy. Welcome in, Dwayne Nation. This is your host, Justin Paez, alongside Genoa Agudelo. And before we get started, Genoa, how you feeling, my brother?
Yo, Dwayne Nation, Justin, I'm feeling so good, Justin. It is July. We're a month away from, a little bit of football. But hey, right now we're going to talk about basketball. The season just ended. And hey, Justin, we all love NBA free agency. Historically, Justin, it's been so interesting. So, Justin, I'm doing so great. I'm ready to just get down and dive into what's going on.
Yeah, free agency is just the most exciting thing in just about all sports, but basketball likes to bring a certain attention. You think the season's over, but there's still so much going on. Obviously, summer league and the draft as well. But yeah, free agency. There's a lot of big names on the market that have been scooped up already, and also names that have not been scooped up. And we're going to talk about it all here today on the episode. But yeah, I mean, it started yesterday on the 30th, and it's already been just fireworks all day. I'm checking my phone at work, and I'm like, holy crap, this happened. Klay went where? Paul George went. Paul George, that signing, I looked at it, it was like 3 a.m. when I looked at it. I was like, what in the world are they doing?
Yep.
But that's what free agency is, the unpredictability. Whenever, fireworks happen at any point in time, right? Just in time for July 4th. So they start out the fireworks, but we'll start talking about said fireworks right now. And we're going to start with the big name of today, or I guess early morning. Most people didn't see it right when it happened. When they woke up, they saw it. And I want to talk about Paul George, the former Los Angeles Clipper, said he was going to be there for life. I mean, it's his hometown. Things didn't work out, and now he's a Philadelphia 76er. Joel Embiid foreshadowed it when they were on TNT together a couple weeks ago. But yeah, now we got Joel Embiid, re-signed Tyrese Maxey, and Paul George, among another signing that I'll bring up at the end of this little conversation. But Genoa, what are the thoughts with Paul George wearing the Philadelphia uniform?
Justin, this so many things just go to my mind. First of all, this is what the doctor prescribed there for Philadelphia. They needed a scorer to go along with Tyrese Maxey, who's one of the up-and-coming point guards in this league, to pair up with the former MVP and Joel Embiid now. That's kind of now a big three. If they can all stay healthy, obviously Tyrese Maxey's young. He hasn't really had any issues yet. He's been very solid for Philly. But with Joel Embiid and Paul George, that's the biggest question now, because that was the biggest question when Paul George first landed in LA, were him and Kawhi going to be able to stay healthy? And, unfortunately, they were never really able to do anything. So a couple things go to my mind. First, let's just reminisce on what it was in LA. 2019 summer, Kawhi Leonard just comes off, that championship victory with the Raptors, his one and done year. And then on the other side, we had Paul George, who was pretty good in his last season with the Thunder. I think they had him here averaging 28 points per game there his last season with the Thunder. Traded for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and a couple other multiple picks and Danilo Gallinari. And then, Justin, they collide in LA. That first year is the pandemic. They go to the bubble. They beat Luka and the Mavericks round 1. But then they have a massive collapse, Justin, against the Denver Nuggets, up 3-1. And they just, the Nuggets back then weren't really known. Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray were pretty good, but they weren't at the top of their peak yet. They blow that lead. We're thinking we're going to get, Justin, LA Clippers versus LA Lakers Western Conference Finals that year in 2020 in the bubble. Never got it. And I think that's probably the only, I think they won another series after that in 2021. Kawhi played, got hurt. I think they did go to the Western Conference Finals. They lost to the Phoenix Suns. That really was it. They never really did anything. So reminiscing on that Clippers run, Justin, as a basketball fan, would have loved to seen the Clippers win their first ever NBA championship. Kawhi gets his third, and Paul George possibly could have got his first. But it just never happened, Justin.
Just too many injuries.
It was just too many injuries, Justin. And so now that that's out of the way, thinking about it going forward now, this team, the Philadelphia 76ers, are now the biggest threat in the East to the Boston Celtics now. Also the Knicks, who we can probably get into in a little bit later. But definitely Philly, their stock is rising, but as long as Paul George is healthy.
Yeah, that's been the big problem, mainly with Kawhi when they were in Los Angeles. But Paul George had just share of injuries, and just that team was old. Now he goes to a team with some young juice flowing. I know Embiid gets hurt every year, but you're kind of subbing what Paul George for Tobias Harris, who just signed with the Pistons today. So that's a major upgrade. I was not a fan of Tobias. Exactly. I
Yeah.
was not a fan of Tobias Harris. Just major overpay since the day he stepped in Philly. No shade to him though. He's still a good player,
Yeah.
but yeah, they get Paul George. I think it's a massively great signing, based on the class that's in this free agency period. Because like LeBron is a available free agent, but he's not going anywhere. And then besides that, it was kind of Paul George, and so I like the move for Philadelphia. I thought for a second Paul George would stay on the West Coast and maybe join like the Warriors or something. Because the Warriors look like that it's the mark and the end of the dynasty, which we'll probably talk about shortly. But I like that. I like that signing for Philadelphia. They even signed Eric Gordon and Andre Drummond, some older vets that I think could put in some good minutes for them. So Philadelphia is winning free agency right now. I love their moves. But that moves me to another team in the Eastern Conference who made a splash a handful of days ago, but it's considered some free agency moves. They trade for Mikal Bridges, from the Brooklyn Nets. So Mikal doesn't, go too far away from New York, in that area, and he goes to Madison Square Garden to, fully unite the Villanova boys together with Dante, of course, Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, and now Mikal Bridges. And I think that is the best move they could have thought about doing. Julius Randle's probably on his way out because they have a lot of mouths to feed now. And I mean, they re-signed OG Anunoby. So the Knicks, too, major winners in free agency. I'd argue that they have a younger unit, overall, and obviously they all played in college together, so they got that chemistry. So I think I put them at the second best team in the East behind Boston, which they were the number 2 seed in, the playoffs this year, but there was a lot of injuries running around that conference. But I think they are clear number 2, and with Philly, I think it's like Philly and New York kind of right here to 2 and 3 for me in the Eastern Conference. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Justin, when you look at the New York Knicks now, Justin, first of all, I love the signing of Mikal Bridges. I know my Houston Rockets were after him
Yeah,
for, different trade deadlines the past 2 years. I know they looked at him this past, going into free agency, going into this week. But now, Justin, you have two forwards, two wings that can now guard a Jaylen Brown and a Jayson Tatum in a potential playoff series, Justin. We're looking at Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. I mean, these two guys are young. They're fresh. They can play defense. They can also score 20 points per game. Looking at Mikal Bridges this past year for the Nets, averaging almost 20, pretty much 20 points per game there. And Anunoby is as solid as they come there. They were able to re-sign him. A bit of an overpay, I think, Justin, to keep Anunoby, but he's so young. He's fresh. He can also get you 20 points per game. He was hurt, I think, when he first got to the Knicks back in, I think, January when the trade went through. I think he missed about a good 20 to 25 games. But I do think, Justin, if he played and was healthy from the beginning of January all the way through the playoff stretch, I do think he could average 20 points per game. He's as solid as they come, 6'7", 240. I mean, the guy can play defense. I think he was on those Toronto championship team. Didn't get a lot of minutes, but to learn from a Kawhi Leonard or a Pascal Siakam, guys that can play defense, even a guy like Marcus Gasol who was on that team, a former defensive player of the year. I like Anunoby going forward. He's only 26, and he'll actually be 27 in a week or so. But Justin, this is a young team now. You're looking at the Knicks now. They have Brunson, Bridges, DiVincenzo, and I do like Randall. I don't know if they're going to get rid of him. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think he's a free agent, Justin, right? He's not a free agent. I think he's on contract, for one more year. So if he's healthy, he's a pretty solid 4. And I think they did re-sign Mitchell Robinson. And so I do think that this Knicks team, it's pretty solid going forward. They just need to add a bench, and I think that they can definitely challenge the Celtics. And I do agree with you; they are neck and neck with Philly as in terms of like being the second seed in the East.
Yeah, and I have a quick question for you. Do you think this unit now, the New York Knicks, could be the best of the 21st century.
Absolutely, Justin.
Yeah,
When you have a star point guard now in Jalen Brunson, who I'm always going to say that I am sorry that I called him wrong when he first left Dallas. I thought that it was just a weird signing for the Knicks, but now I had been proven wrong. One of the very few times in Dwayne sports history that I will ever be wrong. But
that's
this is
right.
one of the one that I caught wrong. But now this is a starting five, Justin, that can really challenge the Celtics. But defensively, I don't think they're as offensively skilled as the Celtics, but they can definitely play defense, and I do think that they can take the Celtics to a 7-game series next year. May I say in the second round or the Eastern Conference Finals?
Yeah, that would be super great. And like that's kind of what we saw from Boston. There was some good offensive performances, but I think the defense is what really stood out and how they were able to shut down the Mavericks in the final series. So if New York can emulate that, that'd be huge for them. And yeah, they're right up amongst the top of the Eastern Conference and arguably the top in the entire league after the move so far in free agency. And moving to our next signing, it happened earlier today. Just the biggest name you could argue in the free agency pool, Klay Thompson is on a sign and trade, and he is headed to the Dallas Mavericks to make, I guess you could argue, somewhat of a big three there with Luka, Kyrie, and now Klay. Arguably, a top three to top three shooter of all time, top five shooter for sure of all time. But last year was a struggle coming off of, two horrific injuries over the last handful of years. Is Klay too much at a time, or do you think he'll make a good impact with the Dallas Mavericks?
No, I think he'll make a good, impact with the Mavericks. I think Justin in the finals for the Mavericks, they could have used a guy like Klay Thompson, a catch and shoot guy, a guy that can shoot off the dribble or kind of just pump fake dribble and shoot. Klay Thompson is just so good at that. A little bit of pump fakes, a little bit of dribbles, and you have yourself a 3-pointer. Also, he's good off the screen, hitting mid-range jumpers. And I still am a believer of Klay Thompson. Look, I'm a Rockets fan, and I cannot stand Klay Thompson or the Warriors in general. But I still am a believer in Klay Thompson. I do think he has a good couple more years to play. He's only 34. He'll be 35 next February. I do think by the time he's 38, 39, maybe that kind of be the end of his career. So I do think he has 3 to 4 years in the NBA. The Mavericks just made the finals, and Klay is now the third, fourth option on that team compared to in Golden State. He was just the second guy, even after they got rid of Jordan Poole. So now I think this is a perfect role for Klay Thompson. I think the only issue for Klay in Dallas is what jersey number he's going to wear, because I do believe Kyrie Irving does wear number 11, and so does Klay. And so does Kyrie turn back to number 2, vintage Kyrie? Better than that, I think this is a perfect fit. I do think I would have loved to see him in LA, but I think a lot of basketball players are not taking the Lakers seriously with the head coaching hire and their draft pick, who we'll get into later today. Not the first round, but the second one, who has a familiar name.
That's right.
So I think that's kind of what had Klay kind of second guessing LA. And who wouldn't want to play with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, and being head coached by Jason Kidd? I'm not sure how much a say Mark Cuban has in that team, but hey, that's just a really good organization who just made the finals. And so why not, if you're Klay, have a chance to get 5 now, Justin? He has 4. We all know he has 4, but now it's the chance to get 5 and have the Mavericks now finally get over the hump going to next year. I love this signing. Justin, in his down year this past year with the Warriors, he did only average 18 points per game, which is not bad. I think Dallas could use someone that has 18 points per game. But I'm predicting, now that he is on the Warriors, I'm predicting him to bump it up and to average 21 to 23 points per game. I know that's a reach for someone Klay's age, but I just,
Right.
Klay, in the world of basketball, no matter how old you get, you could lose athleticism or, whatever it may be, but shooting is never going to go away, I believe, especially like a guy like Klay, who, when he is locked in, when you really tick him off, he is the type of guy that's going to make every shot that he shoots. I'm never going to forget a guy that can score 37 and a quarter. I know that was a handful of years ago, but hey, this is a guy that's going to possibly be able to put the Mavericks, put them over the hump.
Yeah, and I completely agree. With Kyrie and Luka being the ball handlers for 99% of the games, Klay doesn't have to do anything but shoot the rock and play some defense, and that's his strong suit. I mean, he's a 3-and-D guy at his heart, and yeah, he doesn't need to dribble. I mean, that other game too that he had 14 dribbles and had like 44 points. Like it was like he doesn't have to do too much, moving around. Just get him in a spot and he'll spot and shoot it. But I guess the big thing too I want to take away is this Golden State Warriors team. They lose Klay Thompson, they lose Chris Paul. What is the state of Golden State? And what does the future look like? Do you think? I don't know. I'm worried.
Well, if I'm Golden State now, I'm kind of turning my heads to trying to find a guy like DeMar DeRozan to fill in that spot. Look, Stephen Curry is not getting any younger. I believe he'll be 35, 36 here pretty soon. And a guy, they got rid of Jordan Poole a season ago, who I thought was going to be their future. And now they kind of need Jordan Poole back. I do think that maybe there's still a chance they can land a trade and get a star. Maybe, like I said, DeMar DeRozan, or maybe a guy like Zach LaVine. I know there's a lot of reports out there that no one's really interested in Zach LaVine, which I'm surprised. I love Zach LaVine. I think he still has a lot of potential left in his career. And so with the Warriors now going forward, I believe that they have to trade to get a star. It has to be like a DeMar DeRozan, LaVine, someone of that stature. I don't know, maybe an Ingram. Brandon Ingram has been thrown out there for trade talk, Justin. What if, New Orleans says, let's clean house completely. Let's get rid of Zion as well. That's something that the Warriors need to jump on. I know that, they do have a guy in Brad. I don't know how to say his name. It's Brad Spasluski or something like that.
Oh, yeah,
he was their shooting guard, their rookie this past year, who kind of turned some heads. And I think that's why Golden State felt like it was time to move away from Klay. And so going forward, Justin, I just feel like they needed to land a trade to get a star. They weren't able to get Paul George. They lost Klay, lost Chris Paul. Obviously, Chris Paul's at the end of his career. But they definitely need to get a trade, Justin, to keep that juice in Golden State going forward. Because I'm sorry, you're not winning anything with just Klay and Draymond. That's just the truth of it.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I know. I got what you meant. With Steph and Draymond and Kuminga and Podziemski, it's not a unit that's going to put any fear in any team, but it's clear that the dynasty is over. The sunshine on Golden State has left that state, and yeah, for Rockets fans, it's about damn time. It's been a long time coming. Maybe the sun will shine on Houston soon enough. But the Warriors, it was historic. It's a dynasty. It'll be remembered. They edged their name in history, this team. But it's time to wrap it up. And I think the bigger question is Steph or Draymond open to be moved? Because they need to start looking towards the future to get some early draft picks. Or should Steph and Draymond, they're at the age where they could retire in a year, maybe two. But I think the Warriors should start looking forward instead of right in front of them. I don't know if even bringing in a BI or DeMar, that might get them a 7 seed. But I don't know. I don't know. You just got to look yourself in the mirror. I think Golden State, and maybe think that it's a new era and they should start packing it up, start looking towards the future.
I must say, though, Justin, with Klay Thompson, they barely made the play-in. They did lose to the Kings. There's a big meme now that Klay, shot 0 for 10. But, Justin, now without Klay, do they even make the play-in next year? I mean, do they even, with my Rockets, they were kind of neck and neck. I would say end of February, going into March. I guess the Warriors pulled away, but my young Rockets couldn't. But, Justin, without Klay now, they barely made the play. With Klay, I mean, what are they going to be able to do without Klay now? That's the concerning part for your Warriors fan.
Yeah, and with the rest of the West, as you mentioned, we have the Rockets. We have Memphis is coming back with Jaren Jackson, Marcus Smart. It's a solid unit. Portland's really young, but I think they're making some good moves. So the West has always been competitive, and the Warriors are going in the opposite direction as they haven't been in the last 10 years. But that's Warriors talk and Klay talk, because Klay is now a Dallas Maverick. And I think another interesting move that we saw, last week? We saw Dejounte Murray, Atlanta Hawk, is headed to New Orleans to be a Pelican. and work alongside Zion, CJ, uh, and I don't know. And it looks like Brandon Ingram might be on the move. So I guess let's kind of talk about both of them. Dejounte's in town. It didn't work in Atlanta between him and Trae Young. I don't think it'll work out in New Orleans. And so I don't love the move for New Orleans. I think I think Dejounte is a fine player. Uh, but yeah, I'm not super high on him. While I am high on the idea of Brandon Ingram going to the Sacramento Kings, I've heard the rumors of that move swirling around. De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, Domantas Sabonis, Brandon Ingram. I could entertain that idea. I mean, they missed the play-in last year, or they made the play-in, but they didn't make it out of the play-in.
Yeah.
And so they kind of need another piece, and I feel like they can get it in that range, that 6, 7, 8 range, if they get a guy like Brandon Ingram. But yeah, give me your thoughts on both of those moves.
So for Dejounte Murray, even though I didn't like the fit with him and Trae Young in Atlanta, I do wish that they kind of just gave it another chance, just one more year. I think they did switch coaches mid-year, bringing in the former coach from the Utah Jazz. What was his name? I'm blanking
Quinn
on
Snyder.
Quinn Snyder. They did bring him in. They had a couple coaching changes in the past couple seasons. I think it would have been best to just start the season with solidified coaching staff and game plans, and a 4-year with that to go along with Dejounte Murray and Trae Young. But hey, that's out the door now. And now that Dejounte Murray is with New Orleans, I'm gonna wait to see how great I like it once I find out where B Ingram's going. I don't know if he's 100% out of the Pelicans. I do think they should just stick with him. Ingram is still a great young player. They got him in that trade for AD, so I feel like they should still keep him. If not, I think that lowers Murray's stock just a little bit because Murray is such a great passer, averaging almost 6.5 assists. That's one thing I noticed about Murray. He isn't always going to be the flashiest point guard. You know what I'm saying? He's not like Shea or anything like that. I know Shea might be a shooting guard, but Murray is, triple double, type of player who can get you 10 points, 10 rebounds, 11 assists. He's not always going to score the most, even though was able to average 23 points per game. I just feel like I feel like this could work out, but only if Ingram's there. And as far as Ingram, if he were to end up with the Kings, Justin, that would be sick. I mean, talk about a starting lineup. And you also are leaving out Keegan Murray, Justin, who's another standout player for the Kings. So the starting lineup with Fox and Monk and Ingram and Murray and Sabonis, who that's going to be an unbelievable team. And we're talking a top 4 team in the East. I don't want to go extreme here, but I like them a little better than the Thunder if that were to happen, Justin.
Woo!
I mean,
Okay.
We're talking Nuggets, Mavericks, Kings, then the Thunder. I might be forgetting a couple more teams. But hey, that would be a pretty sick move for the Kings. Hopefully they don't have to give up a lot because I'm a big Keegan Murray fan. I love Sabonis. That guy's a triple double magnet, a triple double like machine. So hey, if that were to happen, that would be some gold going down there in Sacramento. We would be lighting the beam almost every night for sure.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned the Thunder because I really wanted to transition to them because, hey, they made a move. They made a couple moves that I think are interesting. None are big names like Paul George or Mikal Bridges, but they get Alex Caruso and they get Isaiah Hartenstein, one in a signing and one in a trade to send away Josh Giddey. But I really like the Caruso move. I know they have a handful of guards there and they kind of need a wing defender, but Caruso is one of the best defenders in the league behind Drew Holiday. And so I think it's a big move. And Josh Giddey is I'm kind of meh on Josh Giddey. So I think that the Thunder were able to get a good veteran in that locker room. He's an Aggie as well, so that just puts a little sprinkle on it. But yeah, I like the Caruso move. And then former Rocket and former Knick, Isaiah Hartenstein, is a really good backup to Chet that I think, hey, why not be there and have another bench piece? It kind of feels like what the Mavericks did last year, kind of like bringing in a bunch of good role pieces, none super studded names, but I enjoy it. But what do you think with Caruso and Hartenstein coming to town?
Yeah, so here's the thing, Justin. I think that the reason why Giddey was traded, I think most of it was what was going on outside of the court, with what was going on in his potential lawsuit. So I feel like, Sam Presti and the Thunder organization felt like they have such a young team going on here. They don't want to carry, that tag behind them. You know what I'm saying, with what
Yeah.
was going on with Giddey off the court. So but on the basketball perspective, I like the trade, but then I don't. I do think essentially they are kind of the same player. However, Caruso plays better defense, and he's been in the league longer. He is an NBA champion with the Lakers.
Right.
And so, we like Caruso. Is he going to fit with the Thunder? Here's the thing, Justin. Josh Giddey was such, I wouldn't say a Draymond piece, not defensively, but offensively for the Thunder. He was able to get rebounds, assists. He was such a great passer for the Thunder. And not only that, I mean, I just felt like he kind of fit on what the Thunder were building with what they were able to draft. But with the 87 picks they have in the next 2 years, Justin, I do feel like maybe they can find someone else. I do think they pumped the brakes on Giddey, just kind of jumped on him too quick. But now his outlook in Chicago, who his teammates are going to be, because we don't think DeRozan or Levine are going to stay there. We do like Vucevic. And so, hey, I think that Josh Giddey probably can eventually take this team over himself in the next 2 to 3 years. But as far as the Thunder, I do believe that they need a defense. So they did get Caruso, and Hartenstein was pretty good with the Knicks. Actually, very surprising year coming off the bench. He did, filled in a lot for Mitchell Robinson when he was hurt, as well as, the back end of the season in the playoffs when Randall wasn't playing. So a pretty solid pickup, for the Thunder. And I think I believe though they need 1 or 2 more centers though, because I'm still not 100% on the, defensive stability that Chet Holmgren has. If he can add some muscle, maybe I'll be more of a believer. But for right now, I'm a little skeptical on that part.
I mean, I don't know. Chet played some serious defense last year with those blocks. I know he's got a slim figure, and so it's kind of questionable. But hey, he's got some defense on him. He's only grown as his rookie year. But I see what you're saying. And so moving past that, I'll just announce some more signings that happened, and then we're gonna get to kind of the headline of what I want to talk about today. But okay, we had Chris Paul signing with the Spurs. I guess my kind of take on that would be he's probably not going to start. I think he's going to be in the same kind of role. Golden State, come off the bench, be a good mentor to Stephon Castle, who we'll talk about in our next episode for the draft. And you got Victor, of course, but it doesn't move the needle for me too much. And then also we saw Jonas Valanciunas. He left the Pelicans. He's headed to Washington. Oh, wow. So we got, Jonas Valanciunas and Alex Sarr, which we'll also talk about in our next episode. And then I guess another interesting move, obviously we saw James Harden stick around Los Angeles, the Clippers. And, Derrick Jones Jr. and Kevin Porter Jr. signed with the Clippers. 2 interesting moves, which I don't think will change too much the Clippers' outlook for next year, especially losing Paul George. They're kind of on the downturn as well. But yeah, give me your thoughts maybe on just a couple of those, and then we'll jump to the Lakers.
Yeah, so for Chris Paul, Justin, this is actually a funny story. Before he came to our beloved Rockets back in, I would say, 2017, I actually thought Chris Paul was going to join the then Spurs, because at that point they had just lost Tony Parker, who signed with Charlotte. And so, they still had an aging Ginobili, but they still had some good players, like Aldridge was still great. And so was, Kawhi in his last couple years in San Antonio. So it's crazy now that Chris Paul is now, years later, for my prediction, now joining San Antonio. I think it's going to be a good kind of mix, actually. I think we're going to see just a tad bit of a revival of Chris Paul. I don't know if NBA does comeback player of the year. I know NFL does, but if they did, I would so vote Chris Paul. He had an okay. We expected this, what he was going to be in Golden State. But now, Justin, he's possibly going to be a starting point guard for a good part of the season. And I love the possible pick and roll with Wemby. I mean, that first alley-oop, that first pass. I mean, I just think Chris Paul is going to have a little bit of a revival year. Vintage Chris Paul, a vintage CP3 year. Not good, not great. I predict him kind of averaging 16 and possibly 8. So 16 and 8, 16 points, 8 assists.
Pretty good.
Pretty decent. Now the Spurs could make a push for the play-in along with my beloved Rockets, because teams like, the Warriors are kind of going downhill. And I'm just learning about Jonas Valanciunas leaving the Pelicans just right now live on Dween. So that's another thing that's going to hurt the Pelicans, and they
Yeah.
might lose Ingram. But Valanciunas was a heart and soul piece for the Pelicans. I mean, this guy can get you 20 rebounds a game for sure. This guy's a great center. I'm a little disappointed that he's going to Washington. But hey, he can play with guys like Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole. So that's cool. See, one thing about Davion Mitchell, I liked him in Baylor. I think he was on the Baylor, that championship Baylor team. Yeah, I think he was the most outstanding player for that tournament or for that series. I think he took down Gonzaga that had Suggs and Crispert. There was a couple. There was a couple other good players on that team, but Davion Mitchell is a stud. When he got drafted to Sacramento, I was a little like, I don't think that fits because De'Aaron Fox is the guy. But now that he's in Toronto, he can play along with Scooter. I don't know if they'll keep Jeremy Graham there, but we'll see what goes on in or not Toronto, not Portland, Toronto. I'm sorry. Maybe he's gonna be. I think he could be good though with Barnes, Scotty Barnes. And hey, he does join a couple other good players there in Toronto.
Quickly's not bad.
Yeah, Quickly's not bad. Quickly was good on the Knicks before he got traded for Anunoby. So a lot of these guys, though, they can be great role players wherever they go. I know you mentioned James Harden. James Harden now is going to have to carry more of a load in L.A. I do think maybe Russell has more starting gigs there. And so, let's see what happens, in L.A. I'm a little disappointed, Justin, because they're moving into their new arena, the Intuit Dome, which is absolutely beautiful. So we'll see how the Clippers can perform there. Let's see. You mentioned Derrick Jones Jr., correct?
Yes.
Yeah. See that right there doesn't really move the needle. Derrick Jones Jr. was pretty disappointing in these playoffs. Just kind of just there. Really would score you a bucket, two, a rebound or two. Nothing really crazy. But yeah, the one that really surprised me the most is Jonas Valanciunas because he is a solid starting NBA center. And if he can go on a team like maybe if Boston needed him or something like that, or maybe even the Thunder could have used him, Justin, to go along with Chet. So out of all these two, I like Jonas. I do think that Washington might be on the upcome. Maybe they can make a play next year. But a lot of these moves kind of make sense, and I like them.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I agree with Valanciunas being a really interesting piece, especially Washington's corralling some names that could be interesting. Poole, Kuzma, Alex Zar, and now Valanciunas. It's an interesting little group. Yeah. But yeah, okay. Moving past those notable signings, let's wrap it up with really. I've been wanting to talk about the team that kind of always steals the headlines, but it's a really interesting situation they're in. The Los Angeles Lakers. Obviously, they have LeBron James, who is a free agent. He declined his option. You think people would normally think, oh, maybe he's on the move. He's not. He's sticking around, and he's actually doing the Lakers a favor. There's rumors, at least, that he's going to take a pay cut, try to bring in another really good piece, a possible DeMar DeRozan, which would be really interesting, in my opinion. Which kind of was a rumor years ago when LeBron joined the Lakers, and then it was like Kawhi or DeMar, who's going there, and then obviously DeMar ended up going to Chicago, and then and Kawhi went to the Clippers. So and of course then LeBron ended up getting AD and everything. So, but DeMar, he's still got some juice. He played solidly well for the Bulls. And then just LeBron being with JJ Redick, it's an interesting little situation. And since we don't have all the episodes, we don't have a Lakers only episode. I want to get your thoughts on just the situation: LeBron, JJ, and that open cap space. They could sign somebody.
Yes, Justin. So first off, for JJ Redick, there's two coaches. One's a former coach, one's a current coach that come to mind with the hire JJ Redick. It could rather be what Steve Kerr was able to do in his first 8 years with Golden State, or it can be what Steve Nash wasn't able to do with that super team in Brooklyn. Right. And I do think, obviously Steve Nash is a future, or he is a Hall of Fame point guard. And Kerr, he was a good player in his, I think Kerr and Redick kind of share those, kind of as a player, the same, kind of capabilities as a shooter, and kind of just like a shooting guard that's kind of just there. But with Redick, I do like his personality. I've watched him a lot on ESPN, and his his takes on First Take, and his commentary is pretty good. One thing I love about Redick is he kind of just keeps it real. He's not the guy to sugarcoat things. He's kind of guy that just give it like it is, kind of just tell it like it is, with no regrets. This guy is a guy that's always going to stick to, his word, and it's never going to change. So I think that's one thing the Lakers do need. I feel like the Lakers do need some kind of young juice. And I do want to let you know, Justin, a fun fact. Pat Riley was actually a commentator, and I think he did Lakers games during the Magic era, and then he became a head coach and was able to win 4 NBA championships. I think the first one that Magic was able to win was with Paul Westhead as the head coach. But Pat Riley was able to become a great coach for the Lakers.
Yeah.
He was young, he fit the style, the motto, had Hall of Fame players, was able to go to New York as a head coach, and then went on to Miami. He's been there ever since. For Pat Riley, and I think JJ Redick can kind of have that similar path. He was a player, he was a commentator, and now he's the coach of the Lakers, just like Pat Riley. So I think that's a couple things to consider. I do think it's not going to be so beautiful at the start. I do think the Lakers can probably start 10-10, 15-9, 19-14, 18, kind of above 500. But I do think that once February comes around, we'll know the true Lakers. They probably make a trade before All-Star break. And I like the roster so far. We have Russell, we have AD, Hachimura is very solid, Jared Vanderbilt, Taurean Prince, Jackson Hayes. I am seeing something here that Cam Reddish, who I was a big fan when he was drafted by Atlanta, he's been on the Lakers for the past 2 seasons. I was a big fan of him. You're obviously going to bring back, the King, LeBron James. And now, Justin, that's a pretty decent roster. And now they drafted Dalton Connect, who I think we're fans of, right?
Yeah.
And we cannot forget Austin Reeves, who's I do believe he's a free agent, I think, but I do believe he will sign with the Lakers. I do think he'll re-sign with the Lakers. I'm not sure if he's a free agent. I think he's.
I think he was last year. I think he was last year. He was. I think
he was last year. Okay. So with that being said, we're having D'Lo, Austin Reeves, AD, Hachimura, Vanderbilt, LeBron, Connect. And I do like Christie, who there was their draft pick a handful of years ago. And I think if they can bring back Christian Wood, and another crazy thought here, Justin, I think they should bring back Dwight Howard, just as a third center, just a guy that you can throw on Nikola Jokic on a playoff series. Because for the love of God, Justin, when the Lakers play the Nuggets, they need someone other than AD guarding Jokic. I mean, Jokic just carves AD every single time they play. I mean, someone like that, and Justin, if they can make moves like that and bring in a DeMar DeRozan or Levine, I like the Lakers to be a top 5 seed, top 6 actually, in the West. So, hey, the Lakers are, in my opinion, looking a little bit brighter than they did in past years. I know LeBron's getting older. I know AD's getting older. But, hey, I think that JJ Redick just brings a tad bit of spark there in LA.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting move in the lightest. That JJ Redick, no experience as a head coach, coming out of being a commentator on First Take and the NBA Finals. He's got a podcast. I wonder, it might be the first active head coach to have a podcast. If they let him, that'd be funny. But I'm really interested where DeMar DeRozan lands. Lakers are my favorite spot for him. And that's interesting at Dwight Howard. I think he's having too much fun in Taiwan with those lady boys. I don't know. He's been having a good time over there as last time I saw. So yeah, the Lakers are a very interesting team, and free agency had started out with a bang. It's only been a couple days, and there's only more to come. There's still more to come. But yeah, this is the coverage of it. And you know what? I think another interesting storyline that we haven't pointed out, it kind of revolves around free agency. It revolves around contract signings. The Celtics extended Jayson Tatum on a 5-year, $315 deal, along with Derek White, an extension of 4 years. So Boston's locking themselves up. They re-signed Brown, or they extended Brown earlier in the season or last offseason. So their core is set in there. You only got to worry about maybe Horford and Drew Holiday retiring in the next couple of years. But Boston's still on their game. I mean, 5 years, $315 is freaking insane, though. I don't even know how they're paying him that much. But yeah, what are your thoughts with Boston?
So, Justin, this is what the champs do. When you win with these players, there's nothing else you can do, Justin, but to keep those players. You don't want to pull Chicago Bulls and break up the band, with Jordan's last title. You don't want to do like what the Warriors did when they won back to back with Kevin Durant. They lost that last one against Toronto. He gets hurt. Even though he gets hurt, you want to bring that band back together. You never want to break it up, because when you break it up, you're always going to look back in 10, 15 years later and say, what if? And so the Celtics are doing what the Celtics have to do, and they should do. If I was a GM, we always have to bring back the guys that brought it to us first. That's just how it is, Justin. You want to go with the guys that brought you back there, and it's a smart decision. You want to keep, that team together, so that way in the next 2 to 3 years of free agency, all you have to do, Justin, is fill in the pieces, whatever it fills in. You know what I'm saying? You already have your 2 wings. You already have, your guy off the bit, your 6 man or whatever with Derek White. And so, hey, I like what the Celtics are doing. And, I do think last year they extended Jaylen Brown. So they have Jaylen Brown for the next 5 years,
Right.
Tatum and White, for the next couple years. So now in the next 2 to 3 years, they're just going to have to figure out what to do at center, because maybe, Al Horford might be hanging it up. And we don't know how healthy Kristaps can stay. So that's something later to worry about later down the line. But for this is an A+ move for sure for the Celtics.
Yeah. So, I mean, contracts have been signed across the league. I think every team has dipped their toe in some sort of either re-signing players or bringing in new players. And so free agency, man, what an exciting period of time. And then we roll from free agency into summer league. And then, of course, football is on the horizon. And with that, guys, also, I mentioned it in our last episode, but we have a Dween Sports special episode in a couple of weeks where we're going to be at a very nice golf course in Dallas, Texas, a special golf, colliding with football kind of an episode with, it's called the Double Down Showdown, a very big, golf tournament that's getting bigger, hosted by some family of mine. And so stay tuned to that. It's going to be a really exciting episode. We're going to drive up to Dallas. It's going to be fun. So, but yeah, that wraps up NBA free agency reactions. I hope you enjoy our cover to the episode. I've been kind of cooking in the design room with some of these. It's been fun. We put our funniest faces out there. So hope you guys enjoy. Glad you guys got to listen, and just stay tuned to more episodes. And subscribe, all of the good things. And as always, send us out.
Yo, Dewey Nation, we hope y'all tune in, because, Justin, these are actually one of our last few episodes of basketball, because after, next week, Justin, it is all football from here all the way to February. And we might even add some college football takes. Justin is
That's right.
fellow Aggie. I'm a fellow U of H Cougar. So, hey, we love our college football. So, hey, Dewey Nation, we love you guys. Keep checking out our stuff. And, hey, as always,
peace.